Farmer notices 4 babies in the field. But what he does next will leave you speechless. When a farmer discovered 4 abandoned babies while working in his field, he was flabbergasted. His blood ran cold when he discovered the note beneath one infant. Soon his heart broke into pieces and he read. What he did after failing to locate their mother was just absolutely unbelievable, particularly in the 1980s. The small Russian town of Kazan wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Karl owned a sheep farm outside the city where he primarily focused on taking care of and feeding his animals. The people of Kazan would then purchase their meat and wool from him. He had been doing this for many years, earning a good living. Sheep farming was only feasible during the warmer summer months because that region of Russia can get quite cold. Karl and his wife would spend their time indoors during the chilly winters making clothes that they could sell to the locals. This meant that Karl never had a day off, regardless of the season, and that he was always earning enough money for himself and his wife each and every month. Although Karl and his wife had a very happy marriage and deeply cherished one another, there was one thing they were lacking. They had been dating for a while before getting married and moving in together, but they had first met when they were still fairly young and had fallen in love the moment they laid eyes on each other. But when they tried to start a family, they had no luck. They even visited a hospital to try to figure out why they couldn't conceive. The specialists had run several tests and checks and discovered it was Karl's wife who was unable to conceive. While they had both been devastated, Karl had reassured her that he loved her and that he was going nowhere. Karl reassured her that he still loved her and that he had no plans to leave while they were both in tears. Despite the fact that his wife had given him the go-ahead to divorce her and find another partner with whom he could be happy, Karl had nonetheless decided to stay with her. With or without children, he had made every effort to ensure that they would have a happy life together. But Karl always kept this crushed dream in the back of his mind. Although he had no grudges against his wife, he still yearned for the child more than anything and occasionally felt depressed when he thought about it. Maybe that's why he loved spending time with his sheep so much. It was a snowy day in the iciest winter Karl had ever experienced. When he woke up, snow was falling outside the window heavily and quickly he started a fire to keep them warm. Karl dressed in a heavy coat and other warm protective clothing before going outside to feed his sheep. They must be starving, but as he walked up to their pen, he noticed that the gate was slightly ajar. Karl was certain he had shut it the previous night. Fortunately, it appeared that all of the sheep were still present, but when he did a head count, he realized that one sheep, the biggest and friendliest of all, was actually missing. He searched the entire yard but couldn't find any evidence of the sheep, so she must have gotten lost in the storm during the night. So he started walking the summertime trail near the mountains that he usually used to walk. It might have walked that way and been grazing on one of the few areas of grass that the snow had not yet covered. As he walked, Karl peered off in the distance until he could make out the outline of a sheep sitting beneath a distant tree. Karl approached her and quickly removed the snow that had accumulated on her heavy fleece. She shook slightly and appeared to be in good spirits despite the discomfort. Despite Karl's repeated requests for her to stand up, she resisted. Perhaps she has hurt or something similar. Karl got ready to look, but what he was about to see would make his blood run cold. Karl screamed in horror when he saw that the sheep had been lying on top of 4 infants who were no more than a few months old when the sheep eventually stood up. In the bitterly cold weather, she had been keeping them warm. He was unable to believe his eyes when he saw the 4 babies. Karl only knew that if it weren't for the sheep, they would have undoubtedly perished from exposure to the cold. As he swiftly picked them up, he discovered something under one of the infants. He picked up a note and began to read it. Soon his eyes widened in disbelief as he read further. He couldn't believe what he was reading in the paper. He quickly ran home with the babies and burst into the house. His wife was equally stunned as he was when he casually told her the entire story. Before warming up some milk for the babies, she quickly ran to the bedroom and found blankets for them. The fact that they had survived in such sub-zero temperatures was nothing short of a miracle. It was all due to the sheep, who must have discovered them and realized they required shelter from the elements. Without a doubt, she was a hero. Surprisingly, the babies weren't in bad shape other than being a little damp. She was aware that she needed to take good care of the babies because they wouldn't be able to handle solid food for a few months. Carl went into Kazan to try and find the mother who had so cruelly abandoned the 4 infants. However, he was unable to locate anyone who might be able to provide any information. They seemed to have popped up out of thin air, and nobody seemed to want them. What a depressing and unfortunate world they had been born into. He was walking home through the snow with tears in his eyes and a spinning head. There was no way they could care for all 4 infants, so what were they going to do with them? It was truly a very sad and bleak prospect for the babies that they would have to go to some sort of orphanage and would most likely end up being split up and sent to 4 separate families. Carl never imagined seeing what he saw as he opened the door to his house. Once more, tears welled up in his eyes as he witnessed his lovely wife taking care of the 4 infants. Perhaps this was a gift from God since they had been unable to conceive children of their own. After a lengthy and intense discussion, Carl and his wife did something that was absolutely unbelievable. Perhaps he was rewarding them for all of their hard work and knew how much love they could give to these babies. They came to the conclusion that keeping the infants and raising them as their own would be the best course of action.